Right. Welcome everybody. This is the March coffee morning and it's going to be all about looking forward. It's March, there's a bit more brightness, lightness. Last month it was all about panic and plans and everyone's struggling a bit, but hopefully with a bit of sunshine and a bit more lightness, we can talk a bit about looking forward today. Please use the chat for any questions, any feedback, because we have a special guest here today, and she's going to be talking in a minute. I'll introduce her. But yeah, so and it'd be great if you want to share your details to collaborate, network, get them all in the chat, and we'll be keeping an eye on that for any questions as well as we go through. So Rebecca and I are business coaches with Enterprising You, and I think a lot of you here are already on the programme, so you'll know what a great, fantastic programme it is for the self-employed in Greater Manchester. And if you're not already on the programme, if you can let us know in the chat, then we can get somebody to talk to you about the programme and to see if you're eligible to come on as well. So we'll do that later. But first of all, we have a special guest. So Lou Cordwell. Lou and I have actually known each other nearly 20 years, I've just worked out, since my days at Kellogg's in the early 2000s. And when I worked in marketing there, and Lou worked for our digital agency, magneticNorth at the time. So we go back a long, long way. We haven't seen much of each other over the years. So I was delighted when I came into this job to be sort of in the same world again. Lou has built magneticNorth over the years, and she's also on the Greater Manchester Local Enterprise Partnership. That's right, isn't it, Lou? So she's really passionate about celebrating local businesses and really fighting for that. She's a really inspirational leader. Yesterday, she was on the press conference with Andy Burnham, answering questions all about all things Manchester business. And today she's on our coffee morning. So we're very, very grateful, Lou, for you taking the time to come along. It'll be a bit different today, but hopefully you'll enjoy it. Lou's going to do a presentation and tell you all about herself and her work, and also a bit about how she's looking forward. There'll be then some time for questions, and then we're going to probably have the rest of the session together like we normally do, with everybody feeding back on how we're all looking forward to. But yes, so over to Lou. Welcome, Lou.
Thanks, Claire. And in fact, I was reminiscing with my husband last night that I can't remember whether do you remember you and Jill coming all those years ago? So my husband used to be a musician, is now a writer, who I was then the manager of his band, was one of the, and you and Jill came to the event, and so
yeah, now
married with a 13-year-old. So like that's how time moves on. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, how scary is that? So yeah, so thanks for having me this morning. It's great to kind of join a group of all women, all working women doing various things and being enterprising in the hardest of times, which is a bit how it feels at the moment. So I thought I might just spend maybe a few minutes talking about my kind of business and my career and how I got to the point in my career that I'm at now, and then maybe talk a little bit, Claire, about the Greater Manchester vision for the future and the work that we're doing, which you know, is interesting when you look at the budget yesterday and what in that context. But you know, we are where we are, aren't we? So we'll deal with that. So and then really happy just to answer any questions or you know, go through anything that people feel is useful in some way. So as Claire said, my business is actually 20 years old, or 20 years old last year, which was not how we thought we might celebrate 20 years. But my background was, so I grew up in Manchester and began a career in traditional kind of comms agencies, so working for big multinationals and which was great and was a brilliant way to kind of earn your trade and learn your craft and all that stuff. And then for those people who were old enough to remember this, in the kind of late 90s, this thing called the internet arrived, which seemed to me to be far more creative and exciting than anything I was doing, making telly or any of the kind of traditional stuff. And so my kind of foray into that began really because we started to get clients who would turn up and say, we might need a thing called a website. Where does one get one, and how do they make them? And of course, nobody in traditional agencies really understood that world. I mean, not many people understood it, full stop. So I got shipped off to go and try and find people to partner with, people to acquire, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then just fell into this world that I thought was ridiculously exciting, that didn't seem to have any rules, that seemed to be breaking all the things that I'd learned were the way that you communicated as a brand. And just fell in love really with digital and with the potential of it. And the business began because I ran back and wrote a business plan and said, this is the kind of business I think we should build. And largely people just wanted to carry on making TV and winning awards at Cannes. So in the end, I got persuaded to go and do it myself, because I couldn't find the company and that I wanted to go and work for, and I couldn't persuade the company I was working for. So I would always describe myself as a kind of accidental entrepreneur, really. Nobody in my family had ever worked for themselves or run their own business. I had no desire to do that. And the motivation really ended up being, I just couldn't find somebody who was doing what I thought the opportunity was and the kind of work that I wanted to do. And our big passion really was always, whereas a lot of the creative industries was inevitably quite centred on London or other international centres, my view was always, you know, Manchester invented the computer. That industry was really embryonic. I mean, when we started the business, less than 25% of the people in the UK were even online, you know, so it was really early days, which I kind of seems unimaginable now to most people in my team who can't imagine as young people that there was ever a life without the internet. So it struck me that actually there was loads of opportunity for Manchester to really own that and be a really significant digital centre. And at the time, there were 3 businesses in Manchester that did what we were doing. Then there was the dot-com crash, and there were 2 businesses because one of them went bust. There were half a dozen in London. But really, our view was we thought it was going to be really big. We thought it was going to be more big than, you know, telly and all the stuff that was the normal traditional comms route. And we were very focused on the innovation bit. I guess we wanted to be the people doing the things that hadn't been done before, being really creative. We didn't really want to be building Tesco's e-commerce solution. We wanted to be doing the stuff that was pioneering and interesting and creative. And yeah, so 20 years later, what's very bizarre about that is we kind of wrote these things that we wanted to have done we used to talk all the time about, you know, when we stand there in 20 years and we've done all this stuff, what will we want to have achieved? And we literally wrote a list of the people we wanted to work for. We wrote a list of the kind of culture that we wanted to create. And so it's the weirdest of things now to be stood kind of almost at the end of that journey going, yeah, so we did that, so what next, you know? So personally, I'm spending a lot of time at the minute thinking about that what next and that how we look forward and for, you know, for me, I'm 48 this year, so starting to think about the next chapter of your life and what you're going to do with all of that. So it's a kind of timely topic for me. And then you know, my passion has always been Manchester. I think it is, you know, the greatest place on earth. I think it's a brilliant place to run a business. It's a brilliant place to do business, and I think we have massive advantages, you know, versus lots of other city regions. It's only when you kind of work with other city regions you realise how brilliant we are compared to others, and things like the growth company that we have as this amazing asset that you suddenly realise everybody else envies because nobody else has these things and these mechanisms for growth. So in my other bits of my life, I chair the Greater Manchester LEP, which is one of those things that nobody ever knows what it does, and I didn't know what it did before I joined it, but it's really where the public and private partnership that works in Greater Manchester is kind of connected. And you know, we've just spent the last 6 months writing an economic vision for Greater Manchester at a time when it feels like we really need a sense of what next. So I think there's been a lot of energy within our economy, inevitably focused on the firefighting and trying to just keep businesses alive, trying to keep people in a job, try and keep people alive. And actually the risk is that we lose the moment and what we see as a big opportunity for the future and for how we move forward, which is what we describe as a bit of a reset moment. So I think definitely what's happened in the last 12 months is, you know, and people will have experienced this personally, they've certainly experienced it in their work life, is everybody's probably for the first time in their career stepped off a treadmill and gone, actually, I'm not sure I want to go back to that. I'm not sure I want to be in the office 5 days a week. I'm not sure I want to commute. I don't really like not seeing my kids or not getting to go for a walk at lunchtime, or, you know, all of those things that people have experienced, as much as there's been massive hardship in it. So I think we as Greater Manchester see an opportunity to try and retain some of those good bits. So we talk a lot now about a vision that's fairer and better for all people, not the kind of have and have not situation that we've experienced, that COVID's kind of shone a spotlight on, I guess, you know, that actually there are people in our communities who do incredibly valuable work that aren't looked after and don't get paid very well. And in the same breath, you know, if we think COVID is an existential crisis, we've got this massive environmental economic crisis that really is, you know, the big thing that we need to worry about. So we talk about better for people and better for the planet, and really a lot of that is about creating strong economic growth for Greater Manchester, but also we've always got to think about our place in the UK and making sure that actually we can play our own part. So the reality for Manchester is a lot of that will be driven by micro business, by freelance workers, by small business. You know, the huge swathe of our economic recovery will come from people going, right, okay, I've been made redundant, I'm going to go and start my own business, or I'm going to do that, turn that side hustle into a real job, you know, so I think we're very focused in our kind of economic strategy about how we support SMEs, really micro business, but also we've called out specifically in that women, because actually, you know, and people will perhaps, and you've probably covered this in previous sessions, you know, what the data's shown us is it's been, and we all know this anecdotally, it's been much harder for women over the last 12 months than it has anybody else. So typically in any recession, young people and women are the first to get made redundant, they suffer the most. But I think particularly because of the homeschooling situation and because of the kind of enhanced kind of domestic crisis, if you like, of us all being stuck at home, women have ended up massively bearing the brunt of that. So there's a huge risk that actually we go backwards, not forwards. And so we're calling it out as something that needs specific support. And so then the other bits of my kind of universe are connected a bit to that. So I'm a founding investor in something called Albright, which is a network just for women who work and for female entrepreneurs and for women who run business. And we've built physical presences in London and now in the US, and we've just launched in Australia, really as a safe place for women to network and women to meet. And I also non-exec for an amazing female founder for a business called My Happy Mind, which is in the education space and is teaching through digital online learning in schools around mental well-being for children, which you know, that business has done really well. It's incredibly busy now, given that one of the things that's front and center for us all as parents and as teachers and people in the community is that we've seen massive kind of detrimental effect to our young people and their mental well-being, and teaching them the skills for life to give them that resilience is the best way to address that. Yeah, so weirdly, in the most testing of times, I am really optimistic that we've got as a city region a really big opportunity to be an example of a different kind of growth, a different kind of success. And I think one of the things that's really important for groups like this is, one, you know, women need to be networked and need to kind of you know, prop each other up at points, especially at times like this. But actually, whilst it is testing times, there is a massive opportunity for us, I think, almost to redesign what success is. So I think the traditional view of business success has been scale, all about, you know, building, you know, more shareholder value at the top. I think there's a really different version of success that people have has come home to roost in the last 12 months, which is much more around personal well-being, balance and happiness, and having enough money to do the things that you want to do, but that not being the end goal of business at any cost. So personally, that's something I'm really excited about, because it has become acceptable for our kids to wander in and out, and for us to be seen as people who don't always look particularly polished or in suits, or, you know, so I think there's a more human understanding that's come out of this, which actually I think we can use to our advantage as women, rather than having to perhaps hide some of the aspects of our life, or just, you know, deal with some of that. And it's and a massive advantage of working for yourself is that you give yourself that flexibility, you know, to why it's okay to say, I structure my business so that I get to pick my kids up at 3 o'clock. Like that's the definition of success for me, is that it's not at any cost. It's actually to suit the life that you want to, and that, you know, that used to be in a slightly derogatory way termed a lifestyle business, whereas I think now actually we should think of those things as really successful businesses, because they're adding to the economy, but they're giving people a really good quality of life. So I'll stop waffling now, and happy to talk to people about anything if it's useful.
Has anybody got any questions? Thank you, Lou. That was really, really great, really inspiring, some good key points there, and really fascinating about women. Yeah, I've been reading this week about how, you know, women have been adversely impacted by this lockdown. They've been doing the majority of homeschooling, you know, where that's been happening. So, you know, that is one of the reasons Rebecca and I put this sort of coffee morning together last year, was just to bring people together to share those woes and things as well. And I think in February we did have a bit of a session where we did, you know, share that. So, oh, I think we've got some coming in now. So, oh, let me just scroll up.
Oh, somebody uses my Happy Mind. That's great.
Yes. Can you see those, Lou?
Yeah, I can see them. So there's a question around best advice and worst mistake. Yeah, so my best advice would be never ignore your gut instinct. Every time I've ignored it, it's gone disastrously wrong, whether that's hiring somebody, working for a client, taking a project on, whatever it might be. One of the good things about getting older is you realize that your gut instinct is actually really powerful, even if it can't be put into a spreadsheet and logicked, then, you know, you're rarely wrong. Biggest mistake, I think where I've ignored my gut instinct and had to and have ended up with often, you know, in situations where you're working with people that it turns out they're not very nice people, which I particularly struggle with, then I think the kind of unpicking of that, the reality is you end up having to kind of look those things in the face and unpick them, don't you? And yeah, you know, there's no way around it, other than you have to kind of look it in the eye and address it, you know, which I think can be quite hard, actually, dealing with some of those conflicts. I had a situation yesterday where I had quite a nasty legal argument with a lawyer, and I'm always filled a bit with dread with those things, because by nature I don't particularly, and I think it's quite true of a lot of women, we don't necessarily like conflict in that very male aggressive way. But I think you almost have to just kind of look down the barrel, you know, and go, right, okay, you know, my instinct is right, and I am good at what I do, and I do know what I'm talking about, and I can unpick this. So
yeah, cool. We had one question from Susie. With so many commitments, how do you make time to look after your well-being?
I probably don't enough, is the honest answer. So I'm a vegan. So I've been vegan for 10 years, which has been my way of, when I've got no time to exercise and I've got no time to, at least I know nutritionally, I'm kind of looking after myself. That's normally my husband's job, is the answer to that, where he kind of prods me and goes, right, you've done enough today, get out of your chair and go for a walk. But I tell you what, I have become, like lots of people, really, really passionate about is I've understood the value of getting out every day and going for a walk and being in greenery of some kind. Is that I've realized that actually psychologically that does me a massive amount. Even if I end up doing a conference call rather than a Zoom and walking, I try and take at least one thing a day and turn it into a call and go out, even if it's lashing with rain, as it often is obviously here. Just feel so much more invigorated for just walking your body a bit and getting out amongst a few trees.
I mean, that's why, you know, Enterprising You's got such a big health and well-being component, you know, which makes it so unique in that, you know, we totally recognise it's so important to look after your well-being, and and actually speaking to a lot of clients, you know, that everyone's finding their physical and their mental health being impacted by this lockdown. So getting outside is even more important. I always tell my clients, if they're struggling, just get themselves out for a walk. And
we've tried I think it's been particular. Hopefully we're going to get on the other side of it now, aren't we? Because the daylight's stretching a bit and it becomes a bit easier. But certainly during the winter months, we ended up making a rule with our team where there was no meetings between 1 and 2, which is difficult because people are busy but because if you don't get that lunchtime slot to go out, it's just gone. Like, you know, you're waking up in the dark, you're going to bed in the dark, and then you don't see anything in between. So I do think it's one of the massive challenges, because we tend to kind of put ourselves bottom of the pile, and you do everything else first, and then you kind of left with not much left for yourself. So I think I really admire those people who are quite ruthless about it, actually, and say, no, it's really important that I do look after myself, because I can't do any of the other things for anybody else if I'm not feeling well and energized. So it's interesting.
There's another question here from Louise Fox, who says, when were the worst times and how did you get through it?
Do you know, the worst times for me so I think there's two things that when I look back and I feel slightly sick about. One is those conflict moments where you've just ended up in a business or in a kind of project or something where you realise that people are not just a bit incompetent, but they're actually quite toxic and they're not very nice people, and suddenly you're having to watch your back. So those kind of situations, which is where I've now learned the gut feel point, is like I knew really somewhere in my heart that those people weren't good people, and I kind of went along with it and hoped it would be better than I thought it was going to be. And I think the hardest thing about working for yourself or running your own business or any of those things is when you face those moments where you just don't know where the work's going to come from. And I think those scary, and it's scary whether it's just you, and it's scary whether you've got a payroll of people, is that, you know, those moments where you feel like you actually don't know where you're going to pay the bills from, you know. And we've had probably 3 or 4 moments in those 20 years where we've literally looked at the bank balance and gone, so we've got 1 month left of money, like how are we going to go and pull this around? And we don't want to borrow money from anyone. So I think the technique I've learned with those things that feel massively scary and huge and almost slightly overwhelming is to break them down into component parts, so they suddenly feel more swallowable. You know, if you can go, right, well, the first thing I need to do is unpick this, and then we need to think about, and then I need to ask for some help from them and them, because they need to help me with this problem. And so I'm a big believer now in breaking big scary things down into little roadmaps that suddenly they will be hard and grunty, but you look up at the end of that road and go, oh, I did it, right, that's all right, we got through that, you know. So yeah, I think the scariest things are bad people and no money. Like those are 2 really scary things in life.
It's a t-shirt, isn't it?
Yeah.
Definitely.
So, a great question here from Janine, who's one of my clients. I find it hard to shout about my business and success. Do you think this is a general theme for women in business? Definitely. Janine and I speak about that regularly, don't we, Janine?
Yeah, definitely. It's and I think, you know, in all, you know, I've worked with loads and loads and loads of amazing women business owners, business leaders, and I never cease to be amazed. I had a brilliant example of this recently, where a really good friend of mine who has built an enormous, I mean, like, you know, £200 million turnover business, incredibly successful, outside in, is the most confident woman you will ever meet, you know, has done it with a baby under each arm. She's incredible. And she's now left that business and decided to go work as a consultant. And now I know, because we paid these people, as you will all work with these people, what the day rates for some of these consultants are. And we'd had a coffee and she said, I don't even know what to charge for myself. Like, what do I charge for somebody who does what I do? So, you know, I know people who will men who will comfortably charge £4,000 or £5,000 a day rate for what she does at the caliber she does it. And she was kind of pulling out and was going, I don't know, 800 quid. And I was like, you're kidding me, you know, that you would. So it's the self-belief point where women really struggle to go, do you know what, I did that thing and it was brilliant. And I think it's just always in such sharp contrast to a lot of men who do feel very comfortable doing that. Often it's not even their own work and they're shouting about it as their work. So it's, I think the answer is you've got to kind of find your own style of doing it, haven't you? Or let other people do it for you, you know, so allow yourself to be in forums where people go, oh, that thing, that business that you've done over there is brilliant, or that project you did is great. So, but it is a natural trait where we feel really uncomfortable and a bit stupid kind of talking about ourselves, and you know, it sits uncomfortably. So I totally get that. It's definitely not unique to you.
There's one here actually. I don't know if this is a question, well, kind of a question from Jodie. I would love to join some more female-led groups and networking events in Manchester. Can you suggest any? What was the name of the one you mentioned again? She didn't catch the one that you mentioned.
So the one that I was talking about is one called Albright, which actually has no physical presence in Manchester, but it has a big digital network. So there's an app and you can join, and it does. It covers everything from pitch days to business advice to well-being to, you know, so there's a whole community there that you can join.
Get the links to people somehow, Claire, shall we? Can we do that? Send them.
Yes,
so
yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
And there's also another really interesting one that I've done I've supported in a kind of advisory capacity before, which is a business called We Are Radical, and actually that's 2 women based down in Nottingham, and they're doing some really interesting work at a very kind of ground zero level with businesses. So on day one, how do I set up a business? And again, a little bit of the networking stuff that we're seeing here. But actually, I think there's a really interesting point around, I think there is a bit of a gap in Manchester for something that's more just generally women in business and networking. There is a lot of, so there's Northern Power Women, which is great for celebrating women's success. And there's a lot of sector specific stuff. So in tech, there's a load of like She Says and individual things. But I think perhaps, you know, the kind of thing that's being done here, you know, the idea, you know, maybe making some of that more permanent, and maybe the growth company could play a part. I think there's a real opportunity actually, especially now, because women are really struggling, you know, with some of these challenges, and it's good just to understand you're not the only one.
Absolutely. Oh, good question. How does Lou motivate her team in these challenging times, and incentivize her team to keep picking up the phone despite gapers? Oh, and how do you politely get past gatekeepers? So I think, I mean, we've invested really heavily in our culture as a business, you know, so I think my feeling over the last 12 months is it's almost like we've drawn down a bit on that equity, you know, is that's been there, but the ask of people has been pretty enormous actually, you know, to keep going in an entirely remote environment with some pretty huge projects and deadlines and things. So I think we encourage a lot of peer-to-peer, so that it's not just top down, that there's a lot of peer-to-peer support that we do. We do think a lot about our regular communications, but also I spend a lot of my time doing one-to-one check-ins with people now, more than you would do when you're physically together, because you can kind of, you know, do it over a cup of tea, or you know, I have to pick up the phone a lot to people and just understand what they might be struggling with or what their issues might be. So I think you know, what has helped us is we have a very clear, strong shared purpose. So there's a really clear definition of how we value success, how we count success, and that helps. There's a massive amount of trust, which amazing. I mean, the team are amazing. They trust each other. They trust me. And largely, I'm just really, my view through this has always been just be really honest. When we went into lockdown in March, we had to be really honest and say, we have no idea what this is, you know, what's going to happen. We don't know whether the business could be shut in 6 months. It could flourish. It could, you know, all of these things could happen. But all I could do was promise that I would do my very best not to have to let anybody go, to keep the business going. If I could not furlough anyone, not furlough any, you know, and you just have to be honest with people and say, like, that will be my job and my commitment to you.
And the bit you can help me with is to try and keep clients happy and try and make great work. And that's something you can focus on. So I think you just have to have a kind of honest contract with people and not make blind promises, don't you, that you just clearly can't keep.
Absolutely. A good question from Louise. How do you think we can best retain the good that we've gained over the last year, particularly for women in terms of flexibility of working hours and location, etc.?
So I think sticking true to, I think we're going to end up in a more hybrid model, you know, where people are a bit in the office together and a bit at home. I think, you know, sticking to some of those kind of routines and actually giving ourselves permission when we, you know, we're going to come out of this and redesign the working day, aren't we? And I think making sure that we give ourselves permission to go, actually, these are the things that I value and help me be more productive, be happier, you know, create better output and have a happier life. So I think actually it's going to take not twanging back to just what it was is going to be something to resist. And actually there will be a set of people for whom they really, really do want to go back to that. And so it's resisting that and probably having, I mean, what we're starting to do now is have a very open dialogue that says we need to collectively redesign the working day. And let's take that moment to do it so that by the time we get to January 2022, we've made a decision on what that is. So I think even if you're just having that conversation with yourself or with a team of people, it's you know, it's giving yourself that space for that conversation, because it's probably the only shot we'll ever get, right, to redesign it. Like otherwise I think we're stuck with whatever we had before.
Absolutely. Yeah. Good, great question from Kate. Is there any way to meet the conflict with kindness while still standing your ground? That's a good one.
Yeah,
especially for women.
Interesting, isn't it? It's so my view is if you play by the male rules, then you've not won. So there's a whole set of dynamics and set of kind of behaviours and interactions that have been designed by men about the way businesses work, the way boardrooms work, the way conflict works, all that kind of stuff. And it's quite alpha. And so what's quite disarming is to not even attempt to play by those rules. So I think for a long time, women had to be in business and almost emulate that and be tough, you know, and, you know, even down to all that, you know, I mean, Claire, you'll remember all this ridiculousness where people used to say, you know, spread yourself out in a meeting so you're physically more dominant, all that bullshit, you know, that we used to get. So I mean, so yesterday when I had this massive argument with lawyers, I actually just thought, do you know what, I'm gonna take you off at the knees. And my opener was, you really upset me to the point you had me in tears this morning with the way you behaved. And you could see this guy just didn't, it was like he didn't know how, and it was absolutely true. He'd really upset me by talking to me in a certain way and behaving, but he just didn't know how to react to that. Whereas I think if I'd gone in and said, you know, I've got a massive issue with your fee rate and the way that you know, and so I think there is a way to just be yourself, you know, which doesn't have to be nasty or personal, or you can have conflict. And often I will preface conflict by saying, this is not a personal statement. I think you're great as a person, but in a work context, we've got an issue with this thing here and it's not good enough and it's not, or it's, you know, however you might phrase it. But yeah, it actually can be incredibly powerful, which is why I think you get, you know, those brilliant statistics around companies with better diversity of boards, you know, that actually you get that blend of different techniques and different skills at the board table. You just get a better performance out of that rather than the endless posturing and alpha maleness that goes on when you get those very male dominated cultures that don't actually get anywhere, do they?
Yeah.
There's a thing, isn't there, about women being people pleasers, which I think it kind of links in with that a little bit, doesn't it? Because we don't want to upset people. Well, it's a huge generalization. Not everyone is like that, but I think that's kind of linked in with, you know, we just struggle with people not liking us or upsetting people because that's how we are naturally.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. And a good one from Lou. Lucy spoke to us in December about resilience. She does did in-person clan parties and has pivoted to doing doorstep ones, and she has
I've been to many of those parties.
She's there.
Not just on my own, like with a child, you know, just to qualify.
So Lucy wants to know if you've got a magic word that you use every day or a power word, because she does bracelets, don't you, Lucy?
I knew you had, Lou. I was like, but I kept sitting here, kept thinking, is it not? And then I thought it'd be really embarrassing if you just went, no, I don't even know who she is.
No, my little girl has been to, so my little girl's at school at Hale Prep, and everybody seemed to have a Looby Loo party for several years. So, it's a good question, isn't it? I don't know. I mean, my husband laughs because I do talk to myself a lot, which I think is just age now. I think I'm just getting to that point where I'm just going to start to mutter to myself. But
yeah, I do.
I will take very kind of consciously take a bit of a breath at points. So I think actually telling yourself to breathe is
that's the one. That's your word.
Magic word. I fancy a magic word bracelet. That sounds good.
I'll send you one, Lou. I knew it was you. Oh, made me day. Thank you.
Good question from Tara. Where GM have identified that micro businesses and freelancers would be drivers of the economic recovery, is there going to be support to assist individuals getting started?
Yeah, and I think we were talking about that yesterday, actually, having seen a lack of that in the budget. And actually that is something where the LEP will work with the growth company to really think now about how we support at that very early stage, because I think for me there is that, as I said before, there's a trigger moment, particularly for women, where you've always wanted to do it but it's never been the moment, and then you get made redundant and you hold the check in your hand and you go, well, maybe it's now or never. So I think we're in one of those things, and obviously we start to see now these massive spikes in startups in these kind of recession periods, because people are almost left with no choice other than to kind of make their own fortune a bit. So that is something we will work quite actively now with the growth company to work out. I mean, obviously the growth company already has lots of those mechanisms and things already, so it's how we can amplify that and try and get some specific funding into those things.
Yeah, I mean, there is a good bunch of programs already, things like Start Smart for very new businesses, and you only have to be on Enterprising You, you've only need four months, of being established. So it's a good one for people that are very, very new. Yeah.
So Claire, I'm going to have to dash, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah, another boring budget thing, but I'm trying to be nice about Rishi, but it's really, really nice. And if there's really happy, if you want to share an email address and people have got any questions or want to connect, then really happy to do that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lou. We will
really lovely to see everyone. Nice to see you, Claire.
Thank you for your time. We very much appreciate it. Take care.
Stay strong. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Amazing.
How good was that, everybody? I hope you all enjoyed Lou's chat and all the questions. There were some fantastic questions there. So we're just going to take that on a bit, I think, really, and just talk about looking forward. I think obviously the first thing for everybody looking forward is going to be Monday when the kids go back to school. But just to have a chat about, how we all look forward from this, to taking some of the themes from Lou's speech, probably both personally and in your businesses as well. So if there's anyone that wants to chat about that, or, scribble in the chat, then, just put your hand up or drop it in the chat.
We'll share all of any of the links that people have put in the chat. I know Janine has put about her networking group for Trafford, so we'll make sure that everyone gets all that information.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I thought it was great, Janine, because Janine's one of my clients and she runs a fantastic ladies in business group. And actually we were chatting, Janine, at our last meeting about how we can, get more people to know about that. So this is a great opportunity.
Yeah, and also I did put in the chat, I hope it's all right, Claire, about if those are on Clubhouse. So myself and 2 other local women in business have joined together for a Northwest Women in Business lounge on Clubhouse every Friday at 10. So a few people said about networking groups in and around the Northwest for women. So that group there is for women to get to know each other and support and help each other. So we just search Northwest Women in Business Lounge. We're every Friday at 10.
Yeah, us Android users can't get on Clubhouse.
I know, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's just for people on Apple. But I think Mish has got a question.
Oh, hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Fabulous. Thank you. Sorry, I haven't got my video on today because I'm actually not very well, but I'm here. So I've got my listening ears on and it's been brilliant. Thank you so much. So my question is carrying on with what I asked of Lou, really, just about what your opinions are on incentivizing the team. She gave some great answers as well, and also the gatekeepers, because I'm finding that some of the people I'm working with, they're struggling at the moment because obviously everybody's highly stressed. How would you approach the gatekeepers and how to kind of make that headway that forge those connections?
Are you talking in terms of things like new businesses and stuff then?
Yeah, I think they've exhausted all of the current sort of clients that they've got and things like that, and now they want to sort of forge new relationships. They have a very established company, but they're looking to expand. So it's those kind of gatekeepers that don't know them yet.
I suppose one way, an initial way, things like, marketing, getting themselves out on LinkedIn, content out there, networking as well, that we've just talked about, is a really good way too, really. But yeah, just getting themselves on a platform like LinkedIn and getting their own content out there and just expanding their network there, I think is another good way to do it.
What about getting on when they actually pick up the phone, things that you could actually say when they're actually, making those connections? What would you say would be a best way forward?
I'm not the best person to shout about cold calling because I hate it myself. And I know a lot of women do, really. But, just developing the relationships first on the phone, I think, really is a good way to, Susie's saying, being a gatekeeper, be polite, be concise, and have something brief ready to email that you can pass on.
Yeah, okay, that's brilliant.
The preparation, isn't it? It's not trying to be impart too much information too quickly, I suppose.
Be too salesy either, I think, because that can put people.
Yeah. It's a really hard question. I really struggle to think that one. No, it's fine. It's a good question, but it's a tough one. It's like there isn't magic answer, is there, to that? It's
no,
it's a challenging one.
We've all got to do it, haven't we? So it's kind of like it's pushing through those barriers of picking up the phone. I think that's but having been a gatekeeper myself, I'm like conscious aware of how other people like to do it as well. But I think everybody's saying sort of a similar thing. Yeah, it's great. Thank you very much.
Oh, no problem. Anyone got any other things they want to add or talk about? They're looking forward as well. Looking forward
beyond Monday the 8th when all the kids go back.
Yeah, it's difficult. I think a lot of people are feeling that it is difficult, but there are some sort of small shoots. I definitely think the weather being a bit brighter and a bit of sunshine is helping. But yes, it is quite difficult for a lot of people to do at the moment. People looking forward to the gym opening, swimming, well-being, which I think is really, really important. But yeah,
you say that you're feeling as a general collective maybe more positive than you were at the start of the year. Do you feel like things are going in the right direction, or is there anyone that feels that that's not happening and they're feeling less good or things a bit wobbly at the minute?
Yeah, Becca being able to go back to face-to-face because she does personal training, which the kids, I know she's been struggling with the kids at home. So
there's a feeling, isn't there? There's as exciting as it is that the world is slowly opening up again. It's also filling people with a bit of anxiety as well about having to go back to what we've become a bit institutionalized, haven't we, with talking to people through the screen and not seeing people face to face. And there's a bit of anxiety about, I know there was a lot of chat when Boris announced the 21st of June potentially as being the day when all of the things would happen and, you know, we'd be able to go out again. And there was an equal number of my friends were like, that's pretty terrifying. So I know it's not a given that people are super excited about what's happening. I know there's a lot of anxiety as well.
Yeah,
that's okay to admit that.
Kate mentioned that she started her business during lockdown, so unsure what work will look like, which is, you know, very true for a lot of people. So, but yeah, I know Amanda there can't wait to work with people in their homes again, not just for those moving home. She does a professional declutterer and organizer, so you know that is a great thing to be able to get into people's homes.
Susie, I agree with you. One day at a time. It's such a cliche, but it's so true. It's the only way I've got through the last few months is if it's just literally, I can't see Susie here on my screen, but literally one day at a time. And that's okay. You know, just get through one day and that's a win, and then go on to the next one. It's fair enough. When, you know, it's a real roller coaster as well. You know, you can have great days and then the next day can be awful and you can't really put your finger on why. So I think we can relate to that.
Yeah, and I think we've all got to realise that just because everything starts to go back to normal, we've still got all the dealing with what has happened to us all, you know, which is massive. You know, we've had a year of this happen to us now. I think it's only as things that are going to be opening up, as all this, you know, effect on everyone's mental health is, you know, is going to come out really. So, you know, that's why the benefit of programs like Enterprising You, sessions like this where we can be together, but even things like, you know, all the health and wellbeing support that we have got on the program, you know, if you do need to use it, you know, it's there for you. And there's some fantastic resources, things like the workshops and health assured and stuff, counselling even. So, you know, make sure you do benefit, you know, take it up to the full benefit really.
And we're all very good at kind of dismissing, or not dismissing, but playing down our wobbles or how we're feeling and think, oh, loads of other people have got it so much worse, and there's almost a shame if you're kind of feeling a bit rubbish. And it's not, there's no shame in it at all. We're all on the same kind of journey together with it, aren't we? And some people can deal with it better than others. It doesn't make any difference if you're having a rubbish day. It's okay to admit that, I think. Yeah,
Rebecca, I was going to say, this is hilarious. Sorry, I'm off the camera. I'm not.
That's okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it is us women who put ourselves down, because when you open your mouth and say, I'm having a bad day, they go, what do you have to be worried about? Why are you whinging? You know, and it's all that talk. And that's what makes most women not come out with how they feel. If we're supportive to each other, if we're willing to, you know, put out a hand, hold out a hand and say, or give somebody a shoulder to say, come on, talk to me, what's happening? You know, it would make a lot of difference to some women. I have a group of 7 women. I met them on a training course, and currently we are each helping each other to actually get through this whole lockdown. I've been indoors in my bedroom since March last year because I've been shielding. But, you know, I would have gone down the rabbit hole or something, but I am still here. I am able to laugh, talk, and people go, how do you manage it? They don't know that there's this particular 7 women who are actually, we're holding each other together. If we can do that, then what a whole lot of difference it will make.
About being vulnerable, isn't it? It's about being vulnerable with the women around you, whether they're family or friends or colleagues or new people that you're meeting. It's allowing yourself to be vulnerable and not seeing that as a weakness, seeing that as actually being quite a strength.
Absolutely.
I think I've learned that myself, because I'm a single mum working with a little 5-year-old, and I've always put my little banner on saying I'm a coper, I can do all of this. I really couldn't. There was a point where I really, really struggled, and I had to actually ask for help, and everyone was like, obviously ask for help, what are you doing? But for me, that was a really hard thing to do, and I've really learned that. That's, if anything, that's what this pandemic has taught me, that it's a strength to ask for help.
Yeah, definitely. So yes, and I think Louisa's made a point in the chat. It's a really good point, because women especially have got so many caring responsibilities, and not many have actually stopped and assessed how they're doing in this pandemic. So yeah, let's all, you know, do that over the next few weeks and just take a look and, you know, check in with yourself, really, because I think we've sort of said it previously, you've got to look after yourself first before you can look after everybody else. So, you know, that is really, really important. So, but yes, that's why we have these sessions each month, so we can all check in with each other. And it's lovely to see lots of this similar faces again. So I'm just scrolling back up the chat just to see. We've got Sajari, who is a newbie, so she's been made redundant from fashion and in the process of turning her side hobby into a business. So that's fantastic. Welcome, being a newbie. If there is anybody on here that isn't on Enterprising You and does want to join, then do just drop your details in the chat and we can get in touch with you. A lot of the ladies on this call are on the programme already, and you get the support of a lovely coach like me and Rebecca, loads of training, support, health and well-being, mentoring. You know, it is a really fantastic thing, and we do put our arms around people, as hopefully the lovely ladies that we've got as clients who are here today can say, really. So but yeah,
we'll get far too involved, don't we, Claire? Don't we?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's lovely though.
Yes, but yeah, and actually, can I say, having this on Zoom is far better. Don't you all agree? I can see lots of people's faces, whereas I couldn't before. So yeah,
someone driving. Cheryl, are you driving whilst you're listening to this? Sure, that's legal, is it?
Cheryl's my client and she's a dog walker, so she'll be going to her next next session. Yeah, thank you, everybody. Yes, it's International Women's Day on Monday. We're going to be doing loads of features about women, inspiring clients, inspiring people within the company. And there'll be lots of content on our social media. So, take a look out for that. I think Brianna's put her LinkedIn details in. So if anybody else wants to add their details there and scroll back up and share your, and all, everyone connects on LinkedIn or Instagram or wherever it is, then, that's what we're here for as well, to bring connections for people. In fact, I think last time we got one of the attendees a bit of business with another, some cake making, as an order from somebody. But yes, we'd love, everybody to share. That's one of the benefits of this group, really. So
Bonnie's just said she's been on the EY Enterprising You programme and it's been life-changing. So like being life-changing.
That's nice. Hopefully it would.
That's a quote. Get that. Who needs the quote? There's the quote. Great quote. Thank you. No, it is. It's a fabulous programme. And I think with everything that's been going on, like Claire's been saying, the health and wellbeing support has come into its own, really. It's been a lot of my clients I've worked with them on that as much as anything else, and it's helped their business kind of exponentially because they've been looking after themselves and talking about how they're feeling. So it isn't just this dry business support, it's a holistic support for everybody, which I know people will attest to that are on the programme or have been on the programme. And yeah, it's lovely. It's very personal, or as personal as you want it to be.
Absolutely. So taking some photos.
Oh God. Has anyone got anything else they wanted to say about how they're looking forward? Kind of gone off piste slightly. No pressure. Everyone's being shy.
Yeah, lots of people connecting and stuff. So anyone got any thoughts of what they'd like to do at next month's session? Got any suggestions then?
Let's get our heads together, won't we? Maybe April. I suppose it'll be a good one because people will hopefully have had a month of the kids being back and
Yes.
things being slightly more normal on a day-to-day basis. So I guess we could have a roundup of how people have found that.
Yeah.
How things have changed, what's been the positives of having a bit of time in the day back again from not having to do. I know that's not relevant to everybody, but a lot of people will appreciate that.
Yeah. I know Kate's trying to plan for each stage of lockdown lifting. She's planning picnic hampers for when people can meet outside.
Such a good idea.
Lovely catering company. So
that's inspired, Kate. That's brilliant. that's using the situation to your full advantage. I like it.
Well, we'll probably sort of finish up if that's everybody. Hope you all enjoyed Lou's talk. I find her really inspiring. She's a great example of a leader who has grown an amazing business, but hasn't lost her sort of, personality and being down to earth. And that is the best thing about her. She's brilliant like that. 1 minute she is off with Andy Burnham, the next minute she's chatting completely naturally to us. So hope you've all taken something from it. We'd love any feedback. If you're any of Rebecca or my client and you want to send any feedback through, then please do that on an email or yes, we will share Lou's email as well in the feedback forms and things that we sent out afterwards. But thank you, everybody.
Thank you. It's been lovely to see so many faces and some faces that I've not seen for a while. Hi, Emma. It's really nice to see people. Thank you for coming. We'll see you next month when it'll be even sunnier and even brighter.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Lovely day.